When I think of the Manila Cathedral, I don't just see history, I see family, and I see love. Because for me, this cathedral is not just a landmark. It's a place where my parents once stood side by side and promised their lives to one another in marriage. That moment was not only the start of their journey, but also the start of mine. So whenever I stand before its grand facade, I don't just see stone and glass. I see resilience, I see memory, and I see the Filipino spirit. Here's my idea for you today. Preserving the Manila Cathedral is not simply about protecting a church. It's about safeguarding the identity, the memory, and resilience of Filipino people. The Manila Cathedral has been destroyed and rebuilt for a number of 8 times. The first was a small structure made out of nipa and bamboo in 1571, which burned down in a fire. Later stone versions were toppled by earthquakes in 1600, 1645, 1863, and 1880. The magnificent 1879 cathedral, once called the most beautiful in Asia, stood proudly until the bombings of 1945 reduced it to a rubble during the Battle of Manila. And yet, after every disaster, people rebuilt. The present cathedral, completed in 1958 by architect Fernando Ocampo, is the latest chapter of that survival story. Think about that for a moment. A building that has fallen for 8 times but still stands. If that is not an example of resilience, I do not know what is. Doesn't that sound familiar? That's a Filipino story too. Earthquakes, wars, storms, and even pandemics. We get knocked down, but we rise again. But the cathedral is not just history, it's alive. It is the seat of the Archdiocese of Manila. It has welcomed 3 popes, Paul VI, John Paul II, and Pope Francis. It has hosted the funeral of President Corazon Aquino. It has stood as a backdrop for many national milestones and personal family moments alike. And here's what I love the most. It is not just a place for famous. It's a home for many Filipinos. Baptisms, funerals, quiet weddings, quiet prayers whispered in the pews. That means the cathedral is not just a religious place. It is a memory map. It holds millions of personal stories, side by side with a national story, and mine is one of them. Now you may ask, why does this matter? Why spend time and resources preserving old buildings? Here's why. First, history. The cathedral is recognized by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines with a historical marker installed on its facade. It is part of Intramuros, which of itself is a National Historical Landmark and listed in UNESCO's tentative list for World Heritage Sites. Preserving it means preserving our chance to join the world's most treasured heritage sites. Second, culture. Heritage sites are our anchors. Lose them, and we lose the places that remind us who we are. The Manila Cathedral is a proof of faith and resilience, values deeply woven into the Filipino community. Third, economy. Before the pandemic, Intramuros welcomed over 3 million visitors. Many came specifically for heritage sites. Sites like Fort Santiago, San Agustin Church, and of course, the Manila Cathedral. Every visitor supports livelihoods, the Kalasa driver outside, the small cafe nearby, the souvenir vendor. The heritage is not just emotional, it is economic. And finally, the law. The cathedral is protected under the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009, which mandates the preservation of cultural properties. On paper, it should be safeguarded. But let's be honest for a moment. While the government has heritage laws and institutions, they also face enormous pressure. Poverty, healthcare, education, climate disasters, these often take priority, and realistically, heritage sites can be neglected. It's not always because of malice. Well, some of the time, it is. Sometimes, it is simply because the urgent survival needs overshadow cultural preservation. In a country where millions struggle day-to-day necessities, protecting old buildings may not seem like the most immediate concern. And this is exactly why our role as people becomes more important. If we leave heritage protection solely to government, we risk losing it. But if citizens, communities, schools, and businesses get involved, then preservation becomes a shared responsibility. The cathedral survived before because generations of Filipinos cared enough to rebuild it. Not because of one decree, but because people believe it mattered. So, How do we ensure that Manila Cathedral survives another 400 years? Policies and funding. Yes, of course. The government must do its part. Laws like the previous mentioned should not just exist on paper, but should be always enforced with funding and oversight. Schools should teach heritage as an identity, not as a footnote in history books. And we should imagine students visiting the cathedral, learning its story, and realizing it belongs to them too. Community involvement is also a part where ordinary citizens can do small things: visit, support, spread awareness, and even just tell the story. Heritage preservation starts with care. Universities, non-governmental organizations, local communities, and even private companies can contribute to preservation projects. Protecting heritage is not just the job of one sector. It is the work of an entire society. Because if we rely solely on government, we risk waiting too long. But if we act together, we can make preservation real and sustainable. Here's my challenge for you. The next time you see the Manila Cathedral, don't just pray, take a selfie, and walk away. Stop. Look closely. Think about what you're standing in front of. 452 years of pure history, a building destroyed 8 times, yet always rebuilt. A place where 3 popes, 1 president, and millions of ordinary Filipinos stood in prayer. For me, it holds my parents' vows. For you, it may hold another kind of memory. But for all of us, it holds the soul of the Filipino people, resilient, faithful, and unbreakable. If we preserve it, we are not just preserving stone walls. We are protecting who we are. Because someday, or one day, when future generations stand before the cathedral, they should see more than just architecture. They should see us. Thank you.